15. The adults. We entered a room full of tables and chairs. There was a fridge in the corner and plates stacked up near a sink. Where are the adults kept? I asked. On the other side of this building, said Rufus. I think. You think? I'm pretty sure. I saw it once. We moved out into a corridor. Soldiers, Rufus whispered. A group of 3 men appeared around a corner ahead. There was nowhere for us to run now, so we only had one option left. Get them, I shouted. My dogs didn't need much encouragement. The soldiers started to draw weapons as my pack raced to close the distance. I reached for my sling and sent a rock whizzing straight down. The long corridor smashed out a light above the soldier's head. They cried out as broken glass showered down on them. Sunrise crashed into a soldier, bringing him down to the ground. Tiny latched onto another leg, biting him through his trousers. The soldier spun about, trying to shake off the little dog, but Zip cornered into his backside and sent him flying. Noisy ran behind the third as Bruce bouldered into him, knocking him backwards. As Rufus and I ran around the struggling figures, the radios on the bell crackled. They're in lower corridor 3, said a voice on one of them. We turned a corner and came to a long window that looked into a room full of panels and screens. There were 3 more soldiers inside. That's the compound control center, said Rupert. I have got an idea. Do you think your dog can overpower these 3? Definitely, I replied. We tore into the room as the officer rose wide-eyed from the desk. Rufus and Sunrise stalked forward, bringing their fangs. The officers backed up, raising their hands to show they had no weapons. Please, said one as I entered the room behind my pack. Call them off. Put a message to the radio that we're heading upstairs, said Rupert. The officer swallowed. Well, I am afraid I can't do that, Bruce, I said and gestured towards the officer. Bruce snarled at the officer. Put the message through, said Rupert. Officer glanced and picked up a radio. The intruders are heading upstairs, he said into the headset. Rufus was at the screen. They ran the whole building from here, he said. He began typing. I could hear running footsteps echoing along the corridor, but then they seemed to grow fainter, as if heading away. Got it, Rufus said. He pressed a button, and a sort of thump went through the building. The lights went out, and the screens powered down. Now these guys can't warn their friends once we leave, said Rufus. Everything knocked out. Rufus, it seemed, was full of surprises. Good job, I said. I didn't know if he could see as well as my dogs and me in the shadowy building, so I helped him towards the door. I've got you. We had to make more. We had to move more slowly now that everything was dark. We heard feet clumping around overhead, but meant no more soldiers on the lower level. It seemed the trick had worked. We made it to the other side of the building and came to a corridor where windows let in sunlight. There, said Rufus. Outside, across a short field of grass, was a long, low building. It was like the one where the kids slept, except made of stone. We raced along until we found a door and splintered out into the daylight. As we headed towards the stone building, the penalty joy of seeing my parents again rose up in my chest and looked over my heart. My mind swelling exciting with thoughts. Would they be just there, inside, waiting? Was I right on the verge of finding them? Would they look the same? Could they recognize me? Would they be angry with me for leaving them behind that day? But really, the only question that mattered was whether they were here or not. My heart just about exploded with excitement. I reached the doorway and ran inside. There were rows and rows of bunk beds and wash basins, casting strange showers in the dark. All of them were empty. I came to a stop. They are not here. I turned my face up to the ceiling. My hands balled into fists. They are not here, I screamed, in a pitch that even I didn't recognize. Neither did the pack. As they all circled me, looking around to try to spot what was in the room that was hurting me, they couldn't tell that my pain came from who was missing from the room. Maybe they are at work. Surprised, suspended Rufus. The look on his face said that I was freaking him out. A soldier appeared on the other side of the room. Pin him down, I shouted, making Rufus jump. The dogs surged forward, and the soldier tried to run. They dragged him down. Sunrise leapt into his chest and lowered her snarling face to his. As I approached, he tore his eye from my wolf and stared up at me with terror. Where are the prisoners? I demanded. They have been shipped. What do you mean, shipped? I didn't know any more than that, squeaked the soldiers. Last I knew, They were being loaded into trucks. In the garage if you hurry. He seemed hopeful of the notion we might be about to live. You might still catch them. I looked at Rupert. We saw all these big trucks in the garage before. Come on then, he said, his eyes shining. It seemed his fear had been replaced with something else, maybe courage. I remembered myself, I reminded myself this had all been his idea, and he wanted to see his parents just as badly as I did mine. We ran back outside and around the main building. As we came around the corner, a line of trucks was driving out through the open gate. In the back of the last one, I saw adults in chains, staring out in amazement at me and my pack. I searched their faces but did not see my parents. Still, Mom and Dad would have been in any one of the trucks. As I ran across the yard, gate soldiers stopped us. He did a double check, then lunged for his control panel. I instinctively reached for my sling and crash! We ran through the gate in time to see the last truck driving off in a cloud of dust. No, I cried, collapsing to my knees. Tears welled in my eyes. Not after all this, Gwen, said Rufus softly, his hands on my shoulder. We can't stay here. I heard soldiers closing in. Rufus helped me to my feet. He was right. We need to get into the safety of the forest. I fought down my rising despair. If I was ever going to find my parents, we had to keep going. Together we fled. 16. Onwards. We sped along in the foliage beside the road, easily outpassing the pack of soldiers on our trail. Their voices faded further and further away. Although we had escaped, I felt an empty sadness mixed with anger. All of the prisoners, including my parents, had been shipped off to some unknown place. Our efforts had been for nothing. The trucks left big, easy to follow marks in the dirt, and I yelled our pack to higher ground so that I would keep track of the road. After several hours, I finally felt we had lost the soldiers. I called for the pack to help. Tiny, I said, can you hear the soldiers? The little chihuahua swiveled his ears around, cackling. Then he wagged his tail, which told me there was no sign of them. I forced myself to stop and think. We were all starving. It might take days or weeks to track the tracks to wherever they were going. It was time to start looking after my pack again. I opened one of the backpacks the dogs had bought and emptied out all the dried meat we had left. The dogs watched me with watering mouths. I nodded to them, and they rushed in, chewing and swallowing vigorously. I took out some water bottles and poured them into bowls. I took some meat and tore it in two, handing half to Rufus. We ate everything. I was usually more careful when the rotation with the rotation, but we needed to nourish our moods as much as our bodies after all the drama at the camp out. Besides, we would always find more food now that we were back in the forest. We set out more slowly than before. We had to pace ourselves and keep an eye out for things to hunt. As we walked, Rufus cleared his throat. Gwen, I have something. What is it? Rufus frowned with that worried, thoughtful look of this that was starting to become familiar. I'm really sorry. I don't know how. I put a hand on his shoulder to interrupt him and say, you are not to blame for them getting my parents away from us. You did some great stuff there, and you shut all the power down. I could have gotten this far without you. I'm good with computers, he said, still looking worried. But he hesitated for a moment. There's something I have to tell you, and I know you and I don't know how to say this, but you should know. Rufus took a deep breath. I'm really am sorry. I'm not sure if I really saw your parents at the campground. What? I stopped in my tracks, eyes flaring. The dogs echoed my motion, sensing my anger. I really wanted to rescue my mom and dad. I thought that if you thought yours were there too, and I mean, they might have been, that you'd help me. I can't believe what I was hearing. I promise to help in whatever way I can, said Rufus. I will make it up to you, I swear, and I will never lie to you again. I wanted to leave them there to fend for himself. The liar, I think he saw that in my face. Would you do anything to rescue your parents? He asked. I'm so sorry. I growled at him, deep in my throat, and my dog watched attentively to see what I would do next. I looked back at the road. I remembered one of my own lies before tracks and soldiers and dogs and eagles. My parents had always told me not to throw things in the house, but I had a new ball that needed testing out, and it was raining outside. I stood in our hallway and threw it as hard as I could, watching it recollect off the walls and ceilings and into the living room, straight into Dad's antique grandfather clock. It made a huge crack in the glass. My sister Kate used to get told off for dropping her school bag near the clock because Dad was worried the glass would crack. So when Dad saw the crack, I said that Kate might have done it with her bag. Kate heard me and looked at me, growling like thunder. Dad saw the look on my face and wasn't fooled for a second. I immediately burst into tears. Kate stormed out and didn't talk to me for 3 days. Dad gave me a big hug as my apology came out, broken by my sobbing. As long as we're true to ourselves and each other, we can fix just about anything, Dad whispered. Kate, hates me now, I gasped. She mad at you now, but it will pass. We are family. I wanted that hug back. I wanted my sister back, talking to me or not. I wanted my family back, and I was going to get them. Maybe my parents had been in these tracks, and maybe they haven't. The thing was, I didn't have much else to go on. Come on, I said to my parents, nodding ahead. We turned away from Rufus and began to move off. Then I looked back at him and saw the growing fear in his eyes as he wondered whether we were going to leave him there alone. You two, I muttered. A pack was a pack, it seemed. Together we went into the forest, as usual, unsure of the path ahead as ever. To be continued.